Hi, everyone. Uh, Welcome to Where Are All the Women? We're having a rather hard day. I think everyone is having a hard day. Um, I I don't even really know what to say, to be honest. It's I don't know. I want to say that I can't believe that it's come to this, but it does seem like the rhetoric I'm seeing from I've seen people I know posting about Charlie Kirk and his murder in a celebratory way. I think most people are mourning. Oh, we lost Bryony. Maybe she'll come back. I think most people are mourning, and I think most people that I'm seeing in any case, but maybe this is just my algorithm, are interpreting things in an appropriate way, which is to rest in peace and to think of his family and to understand that this is a terrifying and tragic and, again, horrific thing to happen to a young man and a father of two. A man who was, I've never met him before, but to me, he seemed like a good man. Everyone that I know who knows him knows that he's a good man. He's, was trying to do something good in America, whether or not you agree with his political opinions, which I hate to even have to say out loud. I hate that there has to be some kind of caveat where you say, well, I didn't agree with everything he said. Like, who cares?
Right. But he shouldn't be killed. Of course, I'm not bad like him, so don't kill me. But I don't think he should have been killed. Like that's kind of what they're saying, right? They have to signal to their tribe so nobody will think they're a bad person before they say they condemn violence.
I mean, I don't even think anybody like I haven't actually I think the people that I've seen say I haven't seen very many people say I didn't agree with all of his opinions, but yeah, I guess I have seen a couple people say that. I never look at Facebook ever. I hate Facebook and I don't use it, but I did look at it briefly today, sort of, I guess, out of morbid curiosity.
How'd it go?
Well, it was, again, like, I don't know what to think. I don't know what my algorithm is on Facebook anymore because I don't go there and I don't do anything there. So whatever Facebook once thought I was politically, that was probably, 5 years ago. And so now I think I saw mostly respectful messages. And then I saw some leftists posting, I guess, what I was worried that I would find, including some people that I knew, people that I used to be, politically allied with, really, people that I used to work with. And one of the posts said, I don't even know if I should even bother reading this stuff because it's just so, like, it's so amoral. And the great irony of it all is that, again, the left they present themselves as being the empathetic ones and the ones who care about the downtrodden and the marginalized and the ones who are, concerned about humanity, concerned about the earth, concerned about building a better world. And it's just not true. And I know that maybe it's not the most helpful thing to say because probably divisive political rhetoric isn't helpful right now. But I just think that the left is kind of evil and unethical.
I'm feeling that way. I don't like the extreme right either. But right now, like I've been saying, I live in terror of the American liberal progressive left getting back into power at the federal level in this country because they are so unhinged and they are advocating for so many things that are straight up evil, like youth sex work, aka child prostitution, normalizing prostitution in general, complete destruction of the sex-based rights of women and girls, open, just completely in the pocket and on the cheering squad for pervy autogynephilic men who've let their fetishes take over their whole lives. I could go on. And now arguing for political violence on top of it and justifying what is a political assassination. Like this was an assassination of a man who was dangerous in a similar way to the way Martin Luther King was dangerous, that he was calm, he was willing to engage people, and he was changing minds.
Yeah, and he was, largely responsible for winning the young vote for Trump. He was very important in Trump's campaign. And again, he was only 31 years old, and he was traveling around the country to all these college campuses and reaching young people. And, and the younger generation really came out for Trump. So of course they see him as an enemy because that's abnormal. And I interviewed Tristan Hopper last week. That interview just went up, and he wrote a book called Don't Be Canada, and he was saying something similar about Canada, although it's obviously way less, than it happened in the US. But that a lot more young people voted conservative this time around. Again, it's probably mostly young men. I think the young women are still stuck in woke land.
Well, too many of them are. I think it's the tide's turning a little more slowly, but it's also turning with the women.
Yeah. I just saw Adrian Sullivan in the comments. Hi, Adrian. Post that in 2022, Kelly J. Keane said to me, well, I'm going to be investing in a bulletproof vest. And I said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's just like, I'm not trying to make this about me, but it's, every time I do an event, I'm scared that somebody's going to kill me. I'm sure Kelly J feels the same way. I'm sure, lots of turfy women feel the same way. I mean, they tried to kill Donald Trump, twice?
They had one very serious attempt that just, the fact that it didn't work is like almost something out of Greco-Roman mythology, like some deity intervened, like, and Athena convinced the wind to blow differently. Very fascinating that was such a close call. But I know, people were cheering for that. Countless leftists I know who were sad. Their first reaction was, too bad he wasn't killed. Like, do these people really want to live in a society where political assassination is the norm?
I don't think they think about it. Like, this is what, it's hard to say. Like, I say leftists, the left is evil. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I think every individual on the left is evil. I don't think that's true. I think that the political ideology is evil. Like, I think that the rhetoric is evil because it compartmentalizes and dehumanizes and objectifies. And I think that that's fundamentally evil because you're removing people's humanity, which is dangerous. And you're seeing everything in a political way instead of a human way, instead of in an individual way. And I think, that can only be dangerous. Here's what this one guy wrote on Facebook. His name is Aaron Watson. The reason I saw it is because Michael Laxer posted on his Facebook page, who's a Vancouver socialist who I used to be very closely allied with. And, I worked with him at Rabble. And I was really, I guess, surprised that he shared this post and he said something like, I agree with every word. But I think it's a good example of how the left thinks. And to be honest, it might have been how I used to think. Like, I don't really like to admit to that because it's so gross and dangerous. But I was so caught up in leftist ideology and this idea that anybody who was on the right was bad. And so maybe it was good that they were gone because they caused all this, existential violence or non-direct violence, you know what I mean, through systematic oppression or whatever we would have said at the time. But so he said, we must not forget that Charlie Kirk was not a good person. Like, what are you talking about? He's not a good person. Like, that's bullshit, but you didn't know him. Like, you're not a good person, first of all. because you're saying these horrible things about a man who was a father and a husband who was just murdered and did not deserve to be murdered, not necessarily, sorry, I feel like not very articulate today. In fact, he was a horrible person who hated Jews, blacks. What are you talking about? LGBTQ2SIA plus Mexicans and women. I mean, that's all bullshit. That's all not true. He lobbied against their rights every chance he got. He died by the same violence he advocated for. Also bullshit. He was a fascist. Bullshit. And a charlatan. Bullshit through and through. Kirk and his ilk are extremely dangerous people. The influence they hold is not to be underestimated. And yes, violence begets violence. But today, the world lost one of the bad guys, a bad guy who reaped what he sowed. I'll leave you with a quote. He gave speaking for the National Rifle Association after the horrific Parkland shooting in 2023. This is the quote from Charlie Kirk that this Aaron Watson person is referencing to prove that he deserved what he got. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry, and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's dribble, but I think it's worth to have a, he really muddled this quote. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have a Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It's rational. I mean, Charlie was defending the Second Amendment and Second Amendment rights. So according to this guy, and, according to this other guy that I know, I saw another post from a friend of mine on Instagram essentially saying the same thing. A lot of people are saying, well, because he defends, gun rights, he got what he deserved. This guy that I just saw posting this on Instagram said essentially the same thing, that in April 2023, Kirk stated that it's worth it to have the cost of some gun deaths every year so we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. I don't know what the context is for this quote because they haven't included any context. Bryony's back. She lost her internet for a while, but I'll let her back in. I also just this week, I've been getting death threats and violent threats for as long as I've been talking about gender identity ideology. So, probably for as long as I've been writing, at least since 2012. And then, I got this comment on YouTube recently from one of the users who was harassing us in the stream last week, who says, we're going to chase you again like we did in San Francisco, but this time you won't outrun us. So this is referencing when we had to outrun the trans activists who were chasing us when we were at Karadansky's event,
the WDI conference.
Yeah. WDI conference, which was really terrifying.
This is fun, just for context.
And they almost got us too.
Yeah. So we were at a hotel. There was a skyway, like a walk across over a major road going to a park from the hotel. And outside on the street were just innumerable insane trans activists, like dressed in their fetish gear and like a ginned up crowd. And you walked out there onto the walkway just to look down, and they yelled, "There's Meghan Murphy," and they ran like people on meth up those stairs and came after you. Like I want people
and
to
they
know
climbed
what
over
happened.
the gate. They like scaled a gate.
Yeah,
like there
something
was this huge, big gate door thing. Like it must have been. Like it was quite high too. It wasn't low. It was probably, like 8 or 10 feet high. And I had my back turned to them, so I didn't see them coming. And then someone saw them and yelled, "Run!" And we turned around and they were almost on us, and we ran and outran them.
Yeah, and I shudder to think of what would have happened if you hadn't outrun them. Like they're murderous. They are upfront about their murderous intent, as they tell us all the time. So that person who said she was a literal woman retard last week, is this who? Okay.
And then she added, P.S. I think this is bullshit. P.S. Underground trans militant groups in Mexico know where you live. Like, I don't think that's true at all, but
wow,
we're in danger here. But, you know, like, these people are murderous and insane and violent and proud of their violence. So anyway, Bryony Dixon is with us, and she's over on Vancouver Island. We did a bunch of events together over there. We've had to fight every step of the way to do these events. We lost our venue every single time, just so that we could hold conversations about gender identity ideology and the impact of these related policies and legislation and everything on kids and on women. And we had a crazy good security team, thank God, mostly volunteers. And, you know, they were out in the parking lot, they were in the building, they were checking social media posts. And this all makes me really angry because I feel that sometimes people have thought I was silly when I said I can't do an event without private bodyguards and a police presence. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want to get murdered, so you can think that I'm being silly all I want. But these things, you know, it is very scary to talk about these things in public.
Absolutely.
Anyway, hi, Brandy.
Hi. Yeah.
How are you doing?
It's crazy. I'm it's so strange being aware of the kind of radicalization that's been going on around this, and then learning that most of my community still aren't aware, you know, that's that these symbols, some of these symbols that are becoming associated with it are just still inclusive or whatever. That honestly, I feel like I'm living in another universe sometimes, and it's events like the tragedy today that I'm like, I'm seeing more people that I wasn't sure would be following people like Charlie Kirk up here in Canada, and coming out and speaking about this, because they've been quiet up until this point. But it's, there is a real undercurrent of violence here, and it's real violence, and I'm really had enough of people saying that my words, when I have an assertive tone, is somehow inciting something, which is what I just heard from this school board. My critique is incitement.
Yes, but tell us what happened. Tell us what happened from the beginning about what happened to you with your kid's school and your it was a Facebook post.
Yeah, well, I think I did it on X too, but they obviously don't go on there anymore. But yeah, I went to drop my son at middle school last week, and as I'm pulling up, all the kids are gathering on the field because they've not been given their teachers yet. They spend a week working out which classes they're going to put everyone in. And so they're all gathering there in the middle of the field, public space, all the parents around seeing it. And one of the teachers has a Progress Pride flag on his shirt, and NDTA is written above it. So quite far away, I snapped a picture. I just thought, at this point, it was a week since the mass murder of children at the Catholic school in Minneapolis. So I was just like, this is first day back. And I mean, I'm not religious or anything, but my children probably didn't know about that, but I was thinking maybe there are some families in this school that the kids might know that had happened, and then they see this image, and I'm like, it's so bold, and a definite statement, a political statement that's in my child's school, and it's associated with this. It's in the front page of that manifesto, right? So it's very much associated with this violence that we're seeing. And so I have a problem with that, right? I haven't commented until now about the flags flying in every school anyway, but this seemed like a step too far. And I don't want my kid exposed to radicalizing propaganda in his school. Like that's as simple as that. So I take the picture, it's very far. The guy's very far away, very blurry, face is moving. And I put it on Facebook, and I say pretty much as much as that, like, there was a school shooting last week, and an ideologue teacher in my child's school, and I'm quite strongly worded. So he's decided to wear this shirt of their shared secular religion and this type of thing. And he's, and I did make the assumption that meant that educator would be funneling my child's head full of these grievance narratives, this kind of pseudoscience activism that's creating this epidemic of like depression and anxiety and radicalization and all. I just don't want it, right? And that's kind of what I said. But it's blown up because, of course, the school district, who Meghan will remember, Tom Rokeby is one of the trustees who defamed our event in Victoria as a rally. So this is, I can't get through to these people. I've tried to be reasonable. I had noticed some people criticizing me that I hadn't reached out to email. Can't I just appeal to the, I've done all that. I've written all the emails and they won't let me present in the front of the school board. And so I took to my Facebook page and they sent me a cease and desist the following day because they're already watching my social media for legal liabilities.
How old is your child?
I have two kids, so I've got a 10-year-old and a kindergartner.
Okay, so little. These, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's the middle school that is where this happened, and that's the one I've now been banned from because I refused to remove the post when they directed me. This vice superintendent directed me to remove a post on my Facebook page, and I don't know who these people think they are, but
right.
At that point they were trying to insinuate that I was bullying and harassing an employee based on gender identity, but of course I didn't mention the employee's gender identity. It could have been any teacher. There's loads of them. They're all, that's the union, right? They all wear that shirt to pride events. So I did know that there was a teacher, some gender diverse teacher at the school, but I don't know who it is. Never seen them. I have seen the classroom, and that's what I have a problem with. It's full of every poster of every type of activist cause you can imagine. And that's the comment I'm making, right? Like, so yeah, they kind of went with it's the gender identity, which it wasn't. But that may have been.
Who was it? A man or a woman? Or
they look like a fat man.
You don't know who it is yet. I couldn't tell from the photo.
Far away, honestly.
Yeah.
You can't tell. So if it was the one teacher in the school with MX pronouns, it's the school that revealed that in there, right?
Right.
But I didn't name the school either. And then their letters name the school, which I've published. So
this is amazing that they were stalking your Facebook page and that they believe that they have jurisdiction over you and what you can post on Facebook.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't even put it in like mum groups or anything like that. Yeah, I will be. but it's mind blowing. I know some of the trustees, and obviously there's the ongoing relationship where the reason they're searching my social media is because I keep calling them out very publicly, and they're getting embarrassed that I keep telling people about their youth wellness van that visits the high schools, and it's links to youth clinics where they give confidential gender affirming care and the funding behind that. There's lots of things going on in this school district that's very suspicious that I keep talking about, and so they're obviously tired of me and they want to shut me down one way or the other. But they've just I've had a lot of people reaching out that don't know me at all and just offering support and willing to show up. And I think it's way too far. If we can't complain about semi-religious symbols in our kids' school, like it's a very standard complaint to make.
Well, what I think is interesting about all of this is that you've been banned from going to your kids' school because you're inciting violence against a teacher when you're complaining about the teacher and the school promoting this ideology, these religious symbols, these radicalizing politics. But, again, like to me, I think it's interesting that it's your words, your post on Facebook. This is obviously something that's happening more and more often. We talked about Graham Linehan last week, where people's words, even people's social media posts are being positioned as violence. And, I sort of thought we were at a turning point when Trump was elected, and there was a turning point in terms of freedom of speech and people feeling a lot more comfortable speaking out about what they believe in and in challenging the ideologies of the left and in challenging gender identity ideology for sure. But now they're ramping up the censorship efforts, it seems like, maybe.
Well, this kind of administrative class is just well trained to do it, right? Even if there's and they also want to defy these top down directives because they actually think they're part of the resistance, even though
they run everything. Like, you're in charge of everything, you're not the resistance.
So but it is disturbing, very disturbing, and it just shows how much money, too much money, you're being paid, their priorities are so out of whack, or the numeracy and literacy rates just plummeting while they're investing resources into stalking my Facebook page. It seems silly, but the reason they think I'm inciting violence is because I linked the shirt symbol to the mass shooting in the States. But it was timing was there. I don't see how it was out of unreasonable for me to reference it. The fact that it was a school, that was everything to me. And to be honest, if he's standing in a public field wearing the symbol, that's the association right there. Anyone standing around can make the connection I did. I just said it out loud on Facebook, that's all. I feel like his expression of wearing the shirt was what linked him to the to the incident. But it's just, we just need to keep politics out of schools, really. Let's teach kids how to do the basic things and then be able to make their own minds up when they're adults. I wear uniforms as well, so like the symbolism is really quite shocking when I move to Canada and see it's pink shirt day, this shirt day, and we're all using the kids to parade and make statements and they're change makers now. That's what it is. They're revolutionaries.
They're using the schools to indoctrinate them into a certain kind of politic, which I think is what they did in communist China. Like, orange shirt day, and they shouldn't be. Well, isn't orange shirt day the one that was pretending that they associated with all those mass graves that weren't found at supposed sites of residential schools, to remember all the children that were supposedly killed at residential schools, which again there was no evidence of, but the Canadian media clung to that narrative. And then I know about this because I had some family members over there who were complaining about their kids being expected to participate in that particular activism at school.
There's a lot of different ones. The orange shirt is tied to reconciliation, but I feel like it's on a different day because then there's also the Truth and Reconciliation Day, which is just a day off. So it's a separate day to that. But then, that one. And pink shirt is supposed to be anti-bullying. And then there's the Pride Month or whatever, Black History Month. And Black History Month last year, the principal of my son's school sent out a recommended reading at home. And one of the recommended readings was that one that's like, the true story of a boy born Penelope.
Oh, God.
So it's like, they haven't trans enough black kids. They've got to write a book targeting the black kids now. And he's recommending that I read that to my kid. No, they honestly think that these things are still very slow and gradual, and they're not rushing any kids into this. And the censorship is obviously so tight that they haven't heard about the cast review. Most people, they haven't.
No.
Just don't know any of it. So they're just going along to get along.
People are so locked into their algorithm that has been cultivated to just speak to what they already believe, that we're living in completely different information realities. And I too am constantly astounded that so many people have no idea what's actually going on in terms of the censorship, the threats of violence, the like Genevieve Gluck's work, the avowed pedophiles who are the people writing the WPATH guidelines for children.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
it's all there to be found.
When you show them the video of Marcy Bowers talking about no little effeminate boys will be able to orgasm when I give them puberty blockers between 9 and 10, which is the age of my eldest son. You know, and they'll never orgasm again. And we don't really know what's going on. So it proves it's an experiment. It proves that you're destroying the sexual function of these small children, and they're probably just gay kids. And they laugh at you, these people who also now laugh at political violence as well. It's just shocking.
Right.
Yeah, they really do seem gleeful at it. And I'm not just saying that because, again, I, for better or for worse, checked my Facebook feed for the first time ever, the first time in a long time. And, you know, went and looked at my, you know, the stories from my personal Instagram account as opposed to my public Instagram account, because those two algorithms will be very different. Because, you know, my private friends, I don't choose because of their politics. My public Instagram feed is obviously going to reflect, you know, the kinds of political stuff and my writing and my work that I'm posting there. So it's going to be two different things. And I was just like, man, this is sociopathic. Like, I think the politics of the left are really sociopathic. And I think this is why critics of the left call them a death cult. You know, there's a lot of different reasons we could call the left a death cult, you know, because they're sterilizing and mutilating kids and destroying their bodies and their ability to reproduce for life, because they support MAID, which is, you know, the rates of MAID in Canada have skyrocketed. They're totally out of control. You know, it's becoming becoming a more and more common way for people to die. And usually they're dying because they can't afford the help that they need. They're not getting the help and support that they need. They feel really lonely. They feel really depressed. They feel really hopeless about their conditions, which is just, you know, really sad and really shocking in a country that prides itself on its healthcare system. And things like Canada's approach to harm reduction and to addicts and to crime on the street, which is all associated with this. You know, they leave these addicts out on the street to die, to commit violent crimes over and over and over again. They're in and out of jail in 24 hours. You know, businesses can't thrive. People don't feel safe in public, on public transit, in their neighborhoods. And things are just getting worse and worse. And this is what the left keeps pushing. And then, of course, there's the depopulation agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Never any talk about celebrating children and in a way of like making children, right? There really is there's a demonization of the nuclear family that we're hearing more and more. And this is a hard pill for me to swallow, but the absolute celebration of birth control and abortion is telling, right? Like that is the push, like a celebration of contraception and abortion. And I am not opposed to contraception and abortion, but I think that the pushing that as the sacrament, the universal good, instead of encouraging people to actually want to see the population continue, want to have descendants, is a death cult, characteristic as well.
Well, and they're so completely deluded, and it makes me feel really concerned about their ability to wake up to the reality of what they're doing and the harm that they're causing. You know, that this Rachel Gilmore woman, who I'm certain nobody outside of Canada knows, and probably most people in Canada don't know her either, but I guess she considers herself a political pundit. I guess she is a political pundit. And she posted, "Terrified to think of how far-right fans of Kirk, aching for more violence, could very well turn this into an even more radicalizing moment. Will they now believe their fears have been proven right and feel they have the right to retaliate, regardless of who was actually behind the initial shooting? Like, it's like, this is what you got out of this, that the right is aching for violence. Like, the left is getting off on violence, and they've been getting off on threatening women with violence for years. Again, I know that I'm being repetitive, but I've been doing this for a long time. So have you, Mary Lou, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well. Well, I know you've experienced this as well, Bryony. The way that you're threatened for speaking out in defense of women's sex-based rights and against transgenderism and gender identity ideology is really very perverted and often very sexual. They are quite literally getting off on talking about beating you and killing you and hoping that you'll be sexually assaulted, and they love it.
Right.
Yeah,
and
the Turk language with that's what I love, to remind the Nanaimo school board that Tom Rokeby called, the TERFs have come after me. I've been attacked by TERFs for sharing this. They're rabid, talking dehumanizing language around women. And they actually had the audacity to put out a joint statement after, I think, they banned me, or around the same day, maybe the day before, about sexism in the workplace with the union that was on the shirt, right? And then it's about, again, a joint statement against sexism in the workplace, and then it's all about gender, but then also it does talk about how they'll hold themselves accountable for any wrongdoing, and then just other crazy things that I took this was an internal email. So the culture of stifling dissent for teachers right now, a teacher sent it to me anonymously, they just don't know what sex is. And they've got this ridiculous statement, and then their trustees are not abiding by any of the things that they are espousing in the statement, by dehumanizing women when they do speak up. Oh yeah, we want feedback, we want to hear from the community, but as soon as you do, you're going to get banned from the school and labeled in this dehumanizing way that is the first step towards political violence against you.
So how can they say you're banned from the school? Like, what if you need to come pick your child up if your child is sick? No,
I have to send someone else. I'm not allowed on the school grounds unless I remove the post, or if they invite me. I am, if the superintendent invited me, I think is what she says. Yeah, if she changes her mind. I don't know. Yeah, but it's so impractical.
Do you have any recourse? Like, what can you do next? Is there any way you can turn that around?
To some lawyers. So definitely talking to some lawyers about this. So I would be very happy to go to court about this, because it's unacceptable. And I, from my interactions, that there's other people in the district that they've given the same order to. I'm not quite sure their circumstances or why, whether it was over speech or wrong opinions or wrong think or any of that, I don't know. But they clearly are just handing out these orders. And of course, we kind of know that that's stemming from this manufactured idea that parental rights movements are somehow far right, conservative, fascist. And they're going to show up outside the school and they're going to tell you to ban books. And so that's why they've got this legislation in the first place. It's to prevent parents from being able to do that. And then, another interesting thing about this is the university. I managed to rally a few parents locally, because the university is then adding to this with its status by running events about parents' rights movements that frame us in that way as radical and far right and kind of dangerous. Because I got a few parents to go to one, and it was a philosophy cafe where they had a gender studies professor, and she's the only point of view they give. She has a presentation labeling us in all these ways, and then everyone there is going to be like, yes, okay, she's the expert in the room, she must know. They scheduled it at 6:30 on a Thursday night, dinner time on a school night, so no one can show. And yeah, it was exactly what you'd imagine. And if we hadn't shown up to challenge her, you can just think how this slowly just filters out, just creating that image of these parents as the problem.
The government does it too. I mean, the provincial government in BC and the federal government and the government-funded media have all framed the parental rights movement as a right-wing extremist, a far-right extremist movement.
And then you get run off the stage. The unions, like all of them come in. Because that was obviously what you were speaking about, was at the Million March for Kids, wasn't it? So it was a parents' thing. So it's... And yet, I'm yet to see them point to an instance where we've created real violence.
No, I don't know.
We haven't. None of us have.
Not a single one.
So how?
I mean, presumably, I feel like the framing of January 6th was the liberals and the left's attempt to frame the right as dangerous and violent. And I don't think any of us still really know what really happened at January 6th and who was behind that. I think that it's fairly obvious that there were plants there. That was not a violent insurrection anyway.
No, the only extreme violence that happened was one of the Trump supporters, a female Trump supporter, was shot in the chest and died. That was the violence that happened then. I'm not defending the storming of the Capitol, but boy, the left loves to make that a much bigger deal than it actually was.
And then meanwhile, to frame the parental rights movement as violent and TERFs as violent, and people like Trump and Charlie Kirk as dangerous and potentially violent. I mean, I noticed a lot of people posting about Luigi Mangione and how he was turned into a hero. And regardless of whether or not this company that Brian Thompson was the CEO was Universal Healthcare or something like that.
United Healthcare.
United Healthcare. Thanks. I mean, I'm not going to say that these companies are great or good or whatever, but that's just not the point. I mean, you're celebrating somebody for murdering an individual on account of politics, and then your defense is that they're responsible for some kind of existential violence or systemic oppression, or it's so dangerous and it's so not true. And the people who actually are doing the literal violence are let off the hook or, celebrated or turned into heroes because they're getting rid of bad people. I think a bunch of people shared this clip from MSNBC of Matthew Dowd saying about Kirk. He's constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which often then lead to hateful actions.
Charlie Kirk isn't the one who killed someone, and it wasn't one of Charlie Kirk's fans who killed someone. It was a person who disagreed with his words. Like he's explaining how Charlie Kirk was responsible for violence through that.
I think he's saying that Charlie Kirk was hateful, so then he deserves the hateful actions that happened to him. This is how I'm interpreting it in any case. I think I'd have to watch the whole clip. But I saw other people posting hate begets hate. But, it's just the phrase itself is very creepy. Hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which often then lead to hateful actions.
So police your thoughts.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've misinterpreted this, but it felt like he was blaming Charlie Kirk. And again, that's what most of these liberals are saying, he said hateful things. This is something that has been said to me before. Well, maybe you shouldn't say these hateful things. What did you expect? I had friends say things like that to me.
Oh, me too.
Like, why don't you stop creating hate then? Like, you're bullying people with your platform, so you deserve to be bullied, like as if I'm concerned about being bullied. It's like, no, I'm concerned about being censored, being no platform, being jailed, being murdered. Like bullying is not a term that I would ever use. I'm talking about real threats here.
Yeah, the first time I realized that it was
bullying. Brian, he's bullying them, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the first time I realized it was like encroaching into the sphere of people I know, like this casualness about it, was when Tatiana got punched in the face in Nanaimo and by that guy with the no space for hate sign, and she had the black eye.
So this was before you go on, I just want to explain what you're referencing. Okay. So this was like, I think this was sort of the second Million March for Children, but it was smaller. It was a rally that was happening in Nanaimo, and this woman, Tatiana, attended.
And she had a sign saying, "Get the cult out of schools." And he had the no space for hate sign. Yeah, and they had a little tussle, and he, punched her in the face, and she had this brutal black eye. And they did, and it took a long time, but it did go through the courts and stuff like that. But when I shared that story, I had a colleague of mine from the theater, who you'd think was the sweetest lady, say, "Well, didn't we agree it was okay to punch a Nazi in the face?" She said, under that. Right. And I was like, whoa, like you, I mean, obviously I said it's no male on female violence is inexcusable, but that's where we're at. They think that they genuinely think that they're equating these people with Nazis, these viewpoints with Nazi viewpoints. And then at that point, anything is justified for these people, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sorry, I'm reading more posts on X about this, and Stephen King posted, "The motivation of the man who shot Charlie Kirk isn't clear, although he's probably mentally unstable. Duh. What is clear is that it was another example of American gun violence."
This Charlie Kirk was shot by a sniper from over 200 yards away in the neck. Like, this is not a deranged, mentally unstable person. This is a very focused, highly trained, possibly militarily trained sniper that got him. Didn't shoot up the whole crowd, didn't shoot anyone next to him, shot him in the neck. The same with the Trump administration, the Trump assassination attempt was from a much closer range, but that was a very targeted shot, though that guy did shoot up the crowd. This one, like, we don't know who did this, but I will tell you, this was not someone psychotic. This was not someone on drugs. This was somebody who had really high quality ballistics training and has spent a long time honing their sharpshooting skills. This is terrifying.
And I wouldn't say this is an example of American gun violence for the reasons I think you just outlined. It wasn't. I mean, I'm presuming that this person had legal guns, and they don't seem unhinged, and they weren't just being randomly murderous. They were, like you said, specifically targeting Charlie Kirk. I mean, I think this is a political crime.
They got him in the neck. I mean, that's even a bulletproof vest wouldn't have protected him. This is a sniper shot, a really well-trained sniper. And meanwhile, does Stephen King care about the 7 to 10 people being killed with guns in Chicago, in the city of Chicago, every week? Like this, there's so much gun violence happening in impoverished communities that doesn't rile them up the way that's gun violence that's happening because of our refusal to enforce our criminal code, our refusal to get violent men off the streets, our catch and release, like letting these guys go over and over and over again. This is that's what's killing Americans in terms of gun violence, not this political assassination.
Well, and Lord, I mean, if you read the story about the man who stabbed Irina Zarutska, I mean, he had so many mental problems, and he was in and out of the criminal system. And, you know, they knew about this guy. You know, he'd committed lots of crimes before. I think he was schizophrenic. You know, he was having major delusions. And, you know, I know it wasn't a gun, it was a stabbing, but I don't think that Stephen King posted about that guy. Not that I'm saying you have to post about every incident of violence in America, because there is a freaking lot, but a lot of the gun violence that happens in America too, besides being in the street in poor neighborhoods, is happening in the home against women in situations of domestic violence. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that the difference in terms of the rhetoric from liberals and the left, and in terms of what they get up in arms about, is very revealing. I mean, this young woman was taking public transit home from work and was murdered by an insane man.
Right. And he did stand up and pace and say, I killed that white bitch, or I stabbed that white bitch. And it is interesting that if the races were reversed, it would have been nonstop news coverage about racism in this country.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I don't particularly care about the race aspect beyond that. Is, of course, it would have been framed as a racist incident of racist violence, and the leftists would have staged mass protests and riots again across the country.
Yeah, if a white man had killed a black woman, then gotten up and proclaimed, I killed that black bitch, absolutely, it would be the only thing anyone was talking about. And riots and burning down buildings and just stopping commerce over it.
Yeah, and he had a long history of arrests. I mean, this is exactly what this is such a huge problem in the blue states and in these urban centers, where so many of the progressive activists are fighting to have the cops defunded and fighting to keep people out of jail and fighting against mandatory incarceration, or, you know, forcing people into mental institutions, forcing people into rehab, which is exactly what should be happening. I mean, if you're an addict and you're out on the street and you're committing crimes, you should be offered the choice. You can go to jail, or you can go to rehab, or, you know, we can put you in a mental institution. The idea that it's more humane to leave somebody like that out on the street is insane.
I know. I mean, that's the other thing about the left, is this refusal to address criminal violence, and this, you know, absolute empathy for these incredibly violent men. That the mayor of the North Carolina town where that happened, her press conference about that incident was about how we have to have compassion for the mentally ill and the homeless, and nothing about the woman, nothing about this young woman who was murdered brutally on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to play this clip that Gurwinder Bogal, who I had on my podcast a long time ago, shared. Hold on, let's see. I'm always very slow at doing this.
Sure. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
I don't think I told you. My name is Mercury.
Nice to meet you.
Why are you here?
Okay, I've been asked that question a lot. First of all, that question should not even have to be asked, but when people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When civilizations stop talking, civil war ensues. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group. What we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have reasonable disagreement where violence is not an option.
You think that's not emotional violence?
How is this emotional violence, by the way? I don't know what that is.
It is harm intentionally perpetrated on another person, another human being, that is intentionally targeted at their emotional well-being.
Okay, so feelings mean nothing to me. Isn't why we had the First Amendment to try to push our boundaries and to hear things that might make you mildly uncomfortable?
This doesn't make me mildly uncomfortable.
Does it make you very uncomfortable?
It makes me angry. I got a question.
Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I think this is what we were trying to do at our events over on the island, Bryony. I mean, this is all, I think, always what we've tried to do at these events where we talk about gender identity ideology. But I think especially over on the island, we were like, we're trying to have a conversation that's not happening in Canada, that's definitely not happening in BC, that's definitely not happening on Vancouver Island, and just offer people the opportunity to, you know, of course, hear these women like Bryony and Linda Blade and Mia Hughes and myself to speak about their concerns and about what they know about the impacts of gender identity ideology on women and kids, but also so that people in the community can come and talk about their concerns and their thoughts, because they're terrified too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And then we, you know, in that whole idea that Charlie's talking about there about, you know, we have to talk to the other side also. So we, you know, made valiant attempts to try and bring them in, so that they could hear what we had to say. And I am in that mindset also. That's how you diffuse these tinderbox situations. You got to listen, because actually I initially started out like pretty in the leftist camp, because I'm a drama theater person, and so you know what they're saying, and then when you start going this way and having a foot over in the other side, I'm gonna have to go soon. My son's here in a minute. You know, you hear that they're saying the same things about each other also quite a lot of the time, and you just sat down and had a conversation, then maybe you could get somewhere. Although, you know, I think there's definitely a segment of the population that's too far gone and they wouldn't be able to engage in that. But this silent middle, and I think you know, there it is. I feel a change in the fact that people are willing to kind of say something a little more, or at least I'm having more support this time than the first time I was cancelled. So maybe that's a good indicator. But yeah, we do need more talking for sure.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna have to head out, ladies, but thank you so much.
Alrighty, thanks for
showing up.
Good luck with everything. Good to see you.
There's
Okay,
like an
bye-bye.
bye.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think that all this words are violence. This rhetoric's probably been going on for what, 10 years now? Words are violence. When you say trans women are men, that counts as a genocide because you're erasing someone's existence. Right. When you say these things, I mean, they used this justification to shut down our event. You know, I was supposed to do a talk over at the Cowichan Community Center, and they canceled it, and they cited the BC Human Rights Code, and essentially said that, but in me saying there's no such thing as a trans person, I was denying the existence of people, which of course is always compared to some kind of genocide or violence. Right.
Disagreeing with them is violence. I do think that's why they targeted Charlie Kirk, because he was having conversations and his whole MO was to be this very calm man who would talk to anybody and wanted to bring more conversation to our culture. Like he was so much nicer of a persona and a much more convincing persona to the middle ground than someone like Matt Walsh, who just comes across as a sexist ideologue, or Ben Shapiro, who I like, but he's just too intellectual and talks too fast. Charlie Kirk was this affable, charismatic, good-looking man who spoke to the youth, a young guy too. He's only 31. He's been at this since, I think it's 17 is when he really started.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy. He's charismatic. Yeah. He's not abrasive. He's not divisive in the same way that, somebody like Matt Walsh is. I mean, I think that he really does stoke division, and I saw him posting on X, you know, the right needs to band together, and it's like, I don't think it's about the right banding together. I think it's about people who oppose this leftist ideology and these terrible leftist policies, and of course violence against anyone and who support free speech band together. I mean, if I'm on the right, you don't want me involved if I don't identify myself as being on the right or as a conservative? And he wouldn't. Of course he wouldn't. He doesn't want anything to do with me. Like,
no. Yeah, it's just so chilling to me. I've been a mess since finding out about the shooting and then finding out about the death. Having a hard time finding words. This feels so incredibly chilling to me. I wonder what's going to come next. I wonder what will happen. I do feel like if this had been a charismatic person on the left who'd been politically assassinated, that the cities would be burning to the ground right now.
I mean, not even somebody on the left, just somebody who they counted as part of their group,
Mm-hmm.
George Floyd. They rioted over George Floyd. I mean, who knows what his politics were. But yeah, I know I am also having trouble finding words and feel quite inarticulate and disturbed and upset by this whole thing. It's so upsetting, and it's hard to really get your head around. So I don't know. I think I don't see what some have been saying. Robin Urbach, who's a columnist with the Globe and Mail, she used to be with the CBC News. I think she may have even edited me once at the CBC News like a zillion years ago, when I was still accepted there. But she posted in response to Graham Linehan. So Graham Linehan posts, they just created 1 million Charlie Kirks. And Robin Urbach responded and said, I don't think so. Charlie Kirk believed in civil discourse. They killed him, and with that, they killed that spirit. In its seed, there will be something much more radical. But I don't think that's true. I don't think this is going to inspire conservatives to become more radical. I think that what it will inspire is for more people to, I'm not talking about the leftists. The leftists, I think, are going to continue to get worse and more unhinged, and I genuinely fear that these kinds of incidents will continue. I hope that's not true, but I'm worried about where we're going in this world, in the West, in America, in Canada, when this is the response to people who are trying to engage in open debate about controversial issues. I don't think that in defense of Charlie Kirk, and I don't think that the kinds of people who support Charlie Kirk and are devastated at his murder are going to become more radicalized in a violent way. I think that it will inspire people to be more like him and to do more of what he's doing. I think Graham Linehan is right. In other words, that's how I feel anyway. I think that now it's more important than ever that we continue to have these kinds of conversations and these events, and that we not be cowed and scared into silence, but that we continue to speak up openly and courageously like he did.
I hope that that's the case. I think that, it's interesting. The name of his organization was Turning Point USA. And I do think we're at a turning point. I think the majority of Americans and just people who just want to live a normal life are really fed up with the left right now and are seeing the excesses of the left. I think the transgender conversation has just infuriated the majority of Americans. And now this might be a turning point. And watching the way MSNBC and so many leftists and progressives responded to this is just more evidence that they are just heartless ideologues. It reminds me of when Trump had his, I don't know what kind of convocation in front of Congress. And when he invited that little boy with cancer up who was really into being a law enforcement officer, but is probably never going to grow up and get to be any kind of professional. And he gave him a honorary Secret Service badge to let him be a part of the Secret Service. And the Secret Service men, who are usually the most stoic guys in the universe, were crying and hugging the little boy. And so many liberals on my Facebook feed were like, what a political stunt, and how dare he, and his dad should be arrested for using him politically, and this is all just theater. And this is a little boy with cancer. And the left, they just look like a bunch of heartless monsters when they're throwing this vitriol at this little boy. This is just in the same vein, the way they're reacting to this political assassination of a man with strong opinions who preached peace. Charlie Kirk was no.
You froze. I can't tell if we've lost Mary Lou or not. Let me check in with her. Wonder what's happening with everyone. Usually I'm the one who's having internet and connection issues in Mexico, but Bryony lost her internet over on Vancouver Island, and apparently Mary Lou's lost hers in New Mexico. Okay, dead air, so it's not just me seeing a frozen Mary Lou. I want to say, I think we were probably going to log off soon anyway, but I do want to say that I am going to be, and Mary Lou is also going to be at the upcoming Genspect conference, which is happening in Albuquerque at the end of the month, the bigger picture conference. And I'm pretty excited to see everyone. Okay. Yeah, we did. Mary Lou said her screen went dark, so who knows what happened. And I would love to meet up with anybody who is going to be there. I have not been traveling to America or Canada, for that matter, as much this year as I usually do, since I've lived in Mexico, which has now been 4.5 years or so. I was traveling quite a bit still to the US and to Canada. Sorry, I'm just responding to Mary Lou here. Give me a second. But this year I sort of got sick of traveling, to be honest. I just wanted to be here and be in my community and focus on my work and have my routine and so on and so forth. So I haven't been traveling as much. But the downside of that is I don't get to see people in real life. And so I'm excited to see some of you maybe who might be there. Again, let me know. And see people like Graham Linehan, who will be over there, Jennifer Say. I think Michael Schellenberger will be there, Mia Hughes, of course. All sorts of cool people. So, yeah, do let me know. I posted the link to the conference, so people who want to still buy tickets can. It's down below in the show notes. And I think we've probably lost Mary Lou. Oh, she says the internet's out. Our whole neighborhood's internet out. This is so funny. This is usually what happens to me. But I guess this makes me feel better. I'm not the only one living in an apparent third world country. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. I think we probably all feel a bit down and sad, more than a bit down and sad. I feel a bit down and sad too, but I do hope that at least something good and positive can come from this, and that we all decide not to live in fear and not to shut down and not to dehumanize, but to really fight for what's important, which is open and respectful dialogue and debate and free speech, and to fight for a liberal society, and to fight for opportunities to be honest with one another and to speak openly, even when it seems scary, and even when people call us fascists and bigots for for discussing our ideas about politics and policies and the way that we would like to see the world go, and about our opposition to the sterilization and mutilation of kids, and in support of women-only spaces, and in support of democracy more broadly. So we will see you again next Wednesday, and I hope everyone stays safe, and I wish you all a good night. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.